Hi guys, welcome to Creations by Karen. Today we're going to be making this really cute daisy wreath, all using mesh from my local Dollar Tree. So let's get going. So you're going to need a few things before we get started. You're going to need a pair of needle nose pliers. You're going to need something to cut tie wraps with. I like to use this cuticle cutter. You're going to need a pair of scissors if you don't want to use the cuticle cutters, of course, and another pair of scissors like this. All right. You're going to need an 8-inch wreath form. I did buy this at Dollar Tree here in London, Ontario, Canada. And these are a set of 2 for $1.25. You're going to need some plastic mesh for the inside. Now, I got this at another store in my city. Unfortunately, right now it's closed. But you can get this at Walmart, and it's just found in the embroidery section of the store. You just want to lay it down and place this on top, and then make a circle from the inside of the wreath and then cut it out. And this is what it looks like when it's all cut out. All right. I wanted to place my leaves strategically on this wreath. So what I did was made a template like this of where I wanted to have the wreaths. And then I just applied it to my plastic mesh, put it down, marked on the mesh where I wanted to have my petals placing using my grid that I'd made. And then you just want to tie wrap this onto the inside of your wreath form. I use 4-inch tie wraps for this. I get this at my local Home Depot. I can get 1,000 for $20 or something like that. And you only need about 5 or 6 to adhere this to the inside of the wreath form. I've gone ahead and done all that. And I've also placed the tie wraps on the sections of the wreath form that I wanted my petals. So I put a tie wrap on each of the brackets, and there's 3 brackets on this particular wreath form. And then I placed 8 in the inside between the 2 brackets. So there's 8 here, 8 here, and 8 here. And then also on each of the brackets. And then on the inside, I've placed the tie wraps where I had marked where I wanted to have my petals placed. And that did take a little bit of time, but it works. It works for me. Like I said, I am using Dollarama deco mesh. This I found in the Easter section. I've never seen it before, and it does only come in an 6-inch roll. It is quite fine, and so what I wanted to do was double all the mesh that I used. So this is what it looks like if you don't double it. See, it's very fine, but when you double it, you get a better effect on the petal. I did use a wood burner to cut these, and I made it into 6 by 6-inch squares. And the wood burner really works for me because there's a considerable less amount of fray when you're cutting your mesh. If you just use a pair of scissors or a rotary cutter, you will get fray. But what the wood burner does, it seals the end, the non-finished edge, and it also adheres the 2 petals together. And that's really important for me because I don't want to have to go back and cut all the fray off, okay? So I went ahead and cut all my mesh, and you're going to need a total of 48 of these petals. And that took about 4 rolls because you get about 36 in each roll. And then, of course, I doubled it, okay? So I've gone ahead and done that. So I'm going to show you first, before we start this, how I did the center. And this is what the center looks like that I'm going to be placing on the inside of my wreath. I did buy this styrofoam ball at Dollarama here in London. I cut it in half, and then I painted it yellow, and then put Modge Podge on it, and then applied some glitter. And then when that was all dry, I put another coat of Modge Podge on it. I want to be able to affix this to the back of the wreath or the front of the wreath without using hot glue. So what I did was took a chenille stem. I placed it on the back of the styrofoam ball that's not painted. And I just took some floral wire and cut small pieces of it, made it into sort of a U, and then placed it where I wanted the Chanel stem to go. And just for some added reinforcement, I cut a small piece of foam, glued it to the inside of this, I'm looking for a word, the inside of the center of the form, and then also put some of the floral wire to it, fixed it. So that's what it looks like. All right, and that just gives it an extra bit of security, so you know it's not going to be falling off. All right, so I'm going to put this aside for now. So I'm going to show you, sorry, how to fold the petals for this. I am going to be using a standard sunflower petal, and this is called a Dean Michaels petal because the woman that actually created this, her name was Dean Michaels, I guess. And what I did also was go to Dollarama and buy these small little elastics to place on the petals, so I can make all the petals at one time, and then that's all done, and then all I have to do is place them onto my wreath form. So what you want to do is you want to take your piece of mesh, you're going to place it down, you're going to have the finished edge at the top and the bottom, and then you're just going to turn it in a diamond shape. Okay, so then you're going to come to the middle, you're going to squish the inside to the outside, so it's going to look like a bow tie, like this. Okay, and then you're just going to twist it and place it on the top of the petal below. So this is what it's going to look like, this, like a petal. And then what I did was just take one of the little small elastic bands, and I placed it around the base of the petal, and that just holds it in place, and I can make a whole bunch of them. So I'm going to show you that again. So once again, you have your finished edges at the top and the bottom, twist it into a diamond shape, come into the middle, scrunch in, and then scrunch in at the bottom, and you're just going to turn this, come over the top one, so it looks like this, and then you're just going to place an elastic band on the base of it. Now I am going to be putting some green petals on this wreath, like that, okay? And so I'll show you on the green how this is supposed to look. So once again, I just got some green mesh, and I only used maybe a quarter of a roll making these, and because I'm only going to need 3, but yeah, I doubled it, of course. So you put your finished edge at the top, finished edge at the bottom, turn it to a diamond shape, and then come into the middle, make it into a bow tie like this, bring the top across onto the petal below, so it looks like this, and then place your rubber band on it. And you don't need to worry about taking these rubber bands off when you're making your wreath because they will disintegrate in time. So once again, that's what your petal looks like. I might do that one more time for you. So once again, a diamond shape, scrunch in top, scrunch into the bottom, bring this around over top, and then place your rubber band on the base of it. And when you do all of these, this works up really quickly. And that's what that looks like. Okay? So that's what your petal looks like. So it's the same petal as the daisy petal, only I just used green to make the petals for the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and start making the wreath. I'm going to start at the bracket. So what I'm going to do is take one of my green petals, and I'm going to place it in the tie wrap that I have already affixed to it. So what I want to do when I make my wreaths is always make sure that the petals are facing the same direction, and meaning that I'm going to have the finished edge always going in the same direction. And that also covers the unfinished edge if you're using scissors to cut it. And so a lot of that is covered. Whoops, I don't want to use those. So that's what, and then you just turn your tie wrap head to the back. So that's what your first petal looks like when it goes on. So I'm going to put 8 petals on the tie wraps adjacent to it. And these are the daisy part. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So you always want to make sure that they're basically the same size. Just place them down and zip them into place. And then what I like to do is put all my petals on at the same time. And then I go back and cut all the tie wraps off. Once again, I'm making sure that my petals are all facing in the same direction. And once you get your petals on, then you can go back and sort of change where you put them in the way of spacing in between. I do quite a few of these, so I kind of have an idea of what I want it to look like. And all I want to make sure is that the finished edges are always running in the same direction. And I'll show you what I mean by that. And it doesn't matter where you start on this particular wreath. If you start at one of the brackets, or you just start randomly somewhere along the outside of the wreath. I'm using the second bracket when I'm doing this, so I leave the outside bracket with nothing on it. I know that I've seen people put their petals on the outside bracket, but I really like to finish the back of my wreath, and when I put petals on the back of on the top bracket, and it makes it really difficult to finish it. I know this is something that you can do watching TV. It's actually something that kids can do as well. My concern would be with younger kids is that, you know, wielding the scissors to be cutting the tie wraps, but certainly I think if you're with them and doing it, I think it would be nice for them to make it, and it gives them a sense of accomplishment. And then they can hang it in their room, which would be great. And once again, I said I live in Canada, and I know a lot of my viewers are from the States, and you certainly have more variety, I guess, of mesh in the States. We certainly don't have that here in Canada. There's very few places I can order mesh, and to have it shipped to Canada from the States can be a little bit pricey. So when I found this 6-inch mesh at my local Dollarama, I was pretty excited by it. Pretty much cleaned them out. Okay, so I've got all my petals on my first set, and you can see that they're all sort of facing in the same direction, and they're all basically the same size. Now, what I like to do is when I finish the outside piece, I will put it down and place something heavy on top of it so I can make it lay all flat, but I'm just going to continue going with the wreath now. So once again, I'm coming to a bracket, so I want to place a green leaf on my bracket. This just kind of breaks up the petals as you're going along, and now I'm going back to the white. I've seen a lot of these petals done in a poly burlap. We can't get that here. I do have a a shipping post box at a, I live not far from a border, so I can have it sent to Port Huron and pick it up there, across the border, of course, and pick it up there. But due to this COVID-19 stuff, they're not allowing people to cross the border unless you consider it an essential service. And although I would love to be able to pick up some craft supplies, I don't think that would be considered essential, unfortunately. So as you can see, this really works up very quickly. And when you're placing your petals down, you want them all to be sort of the same length. So what I did was I have most of my petals just touching the inside wreath form here. So there's the inside wreath form. So I'm placing it down, and all of them are basically the same size, and they're all hitting that wreath form. Now you can make this with any color of mesh. It doesn't have to be white. You can, certainly make it pink or yellow. So make a nice sunflower for a small door. This would be good for someone who lives in an apartment or has a small area where they wanted to place it. It would work on an outside door, I guess, in a home, but it might not be as big as you might want it to be. Just put one more here. Yeah, so you can go ahead and make a sunflower wreath using the same method, but just change out the inside wreath center. You just can paint it brown, and once again put Mod Podge on it, and you can get brown glitter, and that would work good too. I've done a couple of those, so and it's popular. So again, I'm hitting a bracket, so I'm just going to put a green leaf on the bracket. Once again, placing it down so that all my outside edges are facing in the same direction. Certainly if you don't do that, it's not a big deal. I just really like the outside edges covered, the unfinished edges. And by having my petals all going in the same direction, that fixes that. Hope everybody had a good Easter yesterday. It's been a very difficult time for everyone, having to self-isolate and stay inside and not socialize. So you have to find a way to amuse yourself, and I find crafting really helps with that. I can get a lot of stuff done too. Painted my living room yesterday, which had been needed to be done, and since I couldn't spend the day with my family, went ahead and did some painting. There's probably all sorts of projects I could be doing around the house to pass the time, but I like to craft. So we're almost at the end of the outside. As you can see, it works up really quick once you have all your petals pre-made. Like this. Last one from the outside going in. I'm going to go ahead and clip all my tie wraps off. Now, here's what I mean by the finished edge. So that is an unfinished edge. So what I want to do is just tuck it underneath the finished edge of the leaf. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to cut all these off. It's always important to have a little handy thing to keep your garbage in so it doesn't get everywhere. My cat's coming for a visit. She quite enjoys the absconding with tie wraps, and I find them all over my house. Lexi, get down. Get down. Almost done this part. Go lay down. Last one. Okay, once you have all these cut off, you just want to, they have a little head on them, so I just want you to push that head to one side so it's not sticking up. Either side is fine. Do that. Before you start your second row of petals. She just absconded with the tie wrap there. I'm sure I'll find that later upstairs. Okay, so this is what your wreath looks like with all, and you can, like, by all means, go ahead and sort of adjust where you want to put those. So that's what your first row of petals looks like. Once again, it's on the second rung. So this wreath form has 3 rungs. So there's this one, and this one. You're going to fix the mesh to the inside. So we're going to be using we are using the inside rung only on this particular wreath. Now I'm going to go ahead and place the inside petals on, and I'm just going to show another way of I'm just going to show the folding of the petal in case there's people that hopped on that were a little bit late. So once again, just make it in a diamond shape, come into the middle, scrunch it like a bow tie, fold the bottom across the top, place a rubber band on that. So this is what it looks like when you're finished. Once again, this is a Dean Michaels petal, the sunflower petal, named after the woman that designed it. So you're going to use 24 on the 24 petals on the outside, and then you're going to use 16 on the inside, and then 8 in the middle petals. And that doesn't include your leaves that you're putting on the brackets on the outside wreath form. Okay? So once again, there's 48 petals in total. Sounds like a lot, and it's not really. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start placing these on the second row of petals, and they're going in the same as the first ones. Just place your petal in. And zip tie it tight. Once again, I'm going to wait until I have all my petals in before I cut off the zip tie. think the hardest part about doing this is cutting the mesh. I do use a wood burner, and so what I like to do is cut all my mesh at the same time. When you do that and you're using a wood burner, it's really important to wear something protective over your mouth and nose, because you are cutting plastic, and it can be quite toxic, especially to animals. So I always make sure that I have Lexi corralled somewhere else in the house when I'm doing that. It's April here, so you certainly can't do it outside. For all my friends that live down in the southern states, you could do it out in your backyard, I guess, or on your patio. I still think I'd probably wear some kind of protective device if I'm cutting it. Just, you know, you better be safe than sorry, I guess. Oh, yes, she has a zip tie. Hours of amusement for my cat with the zip tie. Don't know why, but if it keeps her happy, that's all that matters, right? So as you can see, this works up really quickly. Done in no time. One more. So I have all my petals now placed on the inside row. So the middle row, I guess. I'm just going to go around and clip off all my tie wraps ends. I did have a really good pair of small wire cutters, but they've disappeared somehow. See if I can. Been using these cuticle cutters for a while, so they're getting kind of dull, but they work really good. And when I started making wreaths with using tie wraps, I didn't have some wire cutters, so I had to look around my house to see what I had that would work, and the cuticle cutters work perfect. I think you can get these at the dollar store. Okay, so the second row is in and in place. I'm just going to turn my heads to the one side. So as you can see, when you put the petals on, it covers up the tie wraps on the previous row. That's what the second row looks like in place. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and put the final row in. And once again, there's 8. I like to just spread the petals out a little bit more instead of having it. So I'll just do this when I'm putting it in the inside, just to allow for a little bit extra coverage. Certainly the center of the flower is going to cover everything, but it's just an added measure of coverage for you. Once again, it doesn't matter where you start, where you finish. All works the same. Like I said, there's 8 on the inside row. Oh, my cat has absconded with something. I know I had the number I needed already cut and formed, so I'll just fold a couple more. Just need 2 more. Oh, there's one. Fold one more for the last one to go in. I'm just going to place this one in. I don't need to put a rubber band in it. And certainly if you wanted to make it this way, you just make them and place them as you go. Just found I could sit and fold all the petals while I'm upstairs watching TV, or you don't have to do everything all at once. So I'm going to go and cut these all off. Yeah, this is getting dull.